Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Not a good start to the Tuesday show. Shooting at Wilmer Hutchins High School. And this was reported right after 1 o'clock here local time. We've been piping through our news partner WFAA and their live coverage. They broke into programming, so we broke into our programming as well. They're talking to students. So I've been listening to this for about an hour now, and the facts are all over the place. But if you jump from platform to platform to platform, you can kind of put together a story here, and I'm sure some of this is going to change over the next 24 hours or so. But here's what we got so far. A shooting. One student shot in the leg is what seems to be the consensus among most platforms, but we did have Sullivan over there on WFAA talk to a woman who said her son is a student, called her on the cell phone, and he saw two of his friends shot in the leg. But this is the same guy. Cole Sullivan reported a witness that he had talked to earlier only heard one shot. So we have conflicting stories already, and that was coming out of WFAA. If you jump over to dallasnews.com, that's the website for the Dallas Morning News, they say multiple students said at the time the school's metal detectors were not regularly used, and the school did not consistently enforce its clear bag policies, both points of frustration. A lot of people are pointing out that this is happening almost 1 year after the Wilmer Hutchins shooting of 2024. NBC DFW, Channel 5, but their website, NBCDFW.com, reported that a parent who spoke with NBC5 said his daughter's a student at the school, and she heard 5 gunshots. When he talked to her on the cell phone, she was still in the school, said it was on lockdown. Fox 4 News says a 17-year-old was shot in the lower leg. Fox News, the national one, foxnews.com, had their reporting on this. They added the fact that a witness said 3 to 6 gunshots were heard. Parents are being told to avoid the area of Wilmer Hutchins High School. I know that goes against your primal parental instincts here, but it's already a huge traffic jam out there. WFAA has a helicopter showing you the scene. There's quite a few emergency vehicles there. I was trying to count them up, and in one shot, I counted 19 between the fire trucks and a handful of ambulances and cop cars. We do already see some parents there, but Dallas ISD has put out just a generic statement also saying parents avoid the area until told otherwise, and they declined to respond to comments from everyone else who reached out with questions for them. So the suspect, possibly a student, but that seems unclear as well. All of the platforms are reporting that there's a 17-year-old student shot. The ones that are reporting on how many people were shot and the age say a 17-year-old is shot. Only foxnews.com I saw said that it was a student, a 17-year-old student. Fox 4 News, the local Fox affiliate, says a 17-year-old was shot in the leg. Doesn't say student. And I believe that's was echoed by WFAA. And of course, the tag, the context that comes with this is, man, this just happened 1 year ago. And I remember having the conversation with you. We need to do something about that. We need to lock this down. They need to tighten up security. That's what a lot of people were asking for. Here we are a year later. Same problem. So 800-288-9227. If you have any details, eyewitness accounts, or secondhand that you've heard from your kids, you can relay it to us, 800-288-9227. Again, our top story, shooting at Wilmer Hutchins High School in Dallas ISD. There was a shooting incident, but not an active shooter. The consensus seems to be one student was shot in the leg. I have one outlet saying it was the lower leg. Fox 4 News added the adjective lower. So you can see I'm just going through the different sources trying to piece together details that people are starting to chime in with. And this story is not even an hour and a half old, but we'll keep you updated here. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Top story, there's a shooting at Wilmer Hutchins High School. It happened. It was reported right after 1 p.m. Then the active shooter situation was declared ended by 1:45, source told WFAA. And then by 2:15, after the James Show had already started, the campus had been secured, according to Dallas Independent School District officials. Crews were dispatched to the scene at 1:06. There's been another report telling the parents, hang on, wait until we get everything settled down and the students evacuated before you come pick up your kids. That was one of the complaints for the shooting at the Wilmer Hutchins High School last year, is that reuniting the parents with the kids was a little chaotic. And so they have said that the students are being evacuated to the bleachers. You can confirm that if you're watching WFAA. They have the helicopter shot, and you can see a bunch of students starting to file into the home side of the stands at the Wilmer Hutchins football stadium down there. And conflicting reports abound. That's normal for a shooting situation that's this new. Some witnesses are saying 1 shot. Some witnesses are saying 5. The most I've seen is 6. I've also seen that 1 guy was reported injured, 2 guys reported injured in another source. A third says 3 ambulances were leaving with people. So I don't know if all that's related to the shooting, or maybe they just went to go back to some other call. I don't know. But I'm just passing along what's been reported here. WFAA, 3 people in total were transported from the scene by Dallas Fire Rescue, according to a source, but it wasn't clear how many of those were shooting victims. So, Mom, Dad, if you got kids down there, Dallas ISD is asking you to wait until they have finished the evacuation in an orderly fashion and have the students staged at the stadium. Apparently not all parents are following that order, but if you are going to follow the rules, they're also asking you to please have your photo ID with you when you come get your child so they can be sure to match you up with the proper student. The comment section under this is, it's not offensive or anything. It's just, man, are we already talking about this? Are we already talking about gun control and metal detectors and what do we do about this? Can we at least make sure the 17-year-old's okay? He's reported to be in stable condition, so he's expected to be okay. But already, whether you're looking on X or some of the other comment sections on other platforms, they're already talking about the clear bag policy, the metal detector situation. We've got to harden these campuses. Is that what happens at the schools that don't have shootings, at the schools that don't have violence? Did they have metal detectors at the safe schools? Why do people just go for that? I don't know. It's bizarre, especially this soon. But let's hold off on assigning blame and declaring we have some sort of rescue plan to prevent this from happening again before we even know everything that's gone on just not even I guess it's about an hour and a half ago now. And I am a person that is a believer in thoughts and prayers. So thoughts and prayers for the families that are affected by this. And man, all the kids that are doing the right things and all the families that are, they're not sending problem kids to school. They've got to live in fear like this. They've, growing up's tough enough. A lot of emotional baggage comes with anyone doing that transition from childhood to adult here. But you want to add in 2 shootings at the same school a year apart. There's the overhead shot of the kids lining up in the stadium. They're all on the home side. They're all on the right side. They all seem to be packaged together. And there's a line of students. So they have some sort of orderly process. I don't know if they're just checking everyone in on an iPad so they can make a proper head count and know who's who and who's where. But there does seem to be a feeling of organization to this, especially compared to what we just saw last year. That was April 2024. Another shooting at Wilmer Hutchins High School. It left 1 student injured. So we may be in a similar situation here because I don't know if it's 1 student injured. I don't know if it's 2. I don't know if it's 3. I've seen reports for all 3 of those scenarios, 1, 2, and 3. So I am just passing along what other people are saying, but I have a feeling in about 24 hours, probably on tomorrow's James Show, we'll have enough of the basic details established and agreed upon that we can start having these other conversations, like what went wrong, Who's at fault here? How do we prevent this from happening again? Is there anything we could be doing to prevent this from happening again? How much of this is the school's fault? How much of this is on the faculty or the security apparatus or Dallas ISD? And I got to tell you, not much. Don't want to get too far ahead of it, but here's another good shot. This is the side parking lot where they have the emergency vehicles station. There's over 20 there now. Let's see, the ambulances have gone. It's all fire trucks and police cars now. There were 3 ambulances there. Now they're not. So that's the latest update. Top story, shooting at Wilmer Hutchins High School. We have reports of one 17-year-old injured. I'm assuming it's a student, but that hasn't been confirmed. Also, I'm assuming the shooter may have been a student as well. But, I'm not even fully convinced that if it is just the one shot, could this be some guy who had a gun and it accidentally went off, or he reached in his pocket and accidentally pulled the trigger? I mean, maybe we can't rule that out. But once you hear that there's 5 or 6 shots, that's out the door. That's not an accident. That's a intended act of violence, completely different situation. Not that the previous one's an acceptable situation. An accidental shooting in a school is bad. Just an intentional mass shooting where the guy's squeezing off multiple rounds at another student. That's worse. 800-288-9227 if you have any inside info, any witness accounts, eyewitness accounts, secondhand accounts. We'll be happy to pass some of them along if you happen to have them. I'm going to go check the platforms, and we'll keep you updated on our top story. One shot at Wilmer Hutchins High School. It is not an active shooter situation, but parents, we ask you to please stand by and wait to show up until they have the evacuation plan set and ready to go. I'm James Parker. This is The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. Top story, shooting at Wilmer Hutchins High School. Can we go back to this audio at WFAA? They're interviewing some witnesses here. Okay. I have been compiling some details as they've been rolling in. This was reported after 1 p.m., and so this is a brand new story, and I'm sure some of these details are going to be refined. The initial reports that are conflicting, somebody's got to be wrong. Some people heard 1 gunshot, some people heard 5, 6. The most I've seen from a witness is they reported 8 gunshots. Okay, we'll get to the bottom of this eventually, but here's what we know in a little more concrete detail, thanks to good reporting by WFAA.com. Crews were dispatched to the scene at 1:06. By 1:45, the law enforcement had deemed the active threat over. A source told WFAA by 2:15, the campus had been secured. Parents, avoid the area of Wilmer Hutchins High School until told otherwise. All right, now to WFAA talking to witnesses. Well, all right, never mind. I'm sorry, she just turned away from a witness right as we went to that. But everyone in the comment section is, or I won't say everyone, but a lot of people are making the connection to the shooting that happened this exact month last year. And that does make it super disturbing because we have a high school that already must have had some security issues because they had metal detectors in place, and the metal detectors had failed. Their existing security protocols had failed this time last year, and it's like, oh well, I guess one got past the goalie. I guess we'll lock it down and make sure this doesn't happen again. And then here we are again. And so you got to start asking, well, are metal detectors the answer? Clearly not. How bad does it have to be for lightning like this to strike twice in the same school? And I mean that as a metaphor, but think about it in the real world. Have you seen a school shooting twice at the same school before? Is this the first time this has happened? That's crazy. So the good news is we have no reports of fatalities. There's differing reports on how many people were shot or how many people were injured. We have many people saying one victim, a male teenager, was shot in the leg. I had one source say it was the lower leg. But we also had the report that 3 people in total were transported from the scene by Dallas Fire Rescue, a source told WFAA. So we're waiting for the all clear on parent reunification plans. The good news is they seem to have a little more orderly hold on the evacuation plans, getting the students out of the school, getting the crime scene cleared, staging the students at Eagle Stadium. And it looks like they're cataloging the kids as they go in order to reunite them with their parents. So when the parents show up in the parking lot, you can show them your ID, and they'll go holler and get your kid out of the stadium. Or they can tell you if your kid's in the stadium or not. Maybe your kid went home with the friend, or maybe your kid got picked up by someone else's parents, or maybe the grandparents beat the parents there. But they have a system that looks a little more organized because we just went through this in April. We went through this on the James Show, and we had the helicopter and we had the live reports. And I just find it so bizarre. I think this is the first time I can remember 2 shootings at the same school. We haven't had to go through this before. Do you remember 2 shootings at the same school? Another thing I see in the comments is this is a time to homeschool. This is the last piece of evidence that some people need for homeschool. And let's wait a little bit before we get all political, because we can talk about gun control and whether or not this supports school choice, or we need to get vouchers now, or for the safety of our kids. Can we just wait until tomorrow to do some of that? Let's make sure all the kids are okay. Let's get a few more facts settled here, because I still don't know how many gunshots were fired. I still don't know how many kids were shot. You still don't have enough evidence to start making some assumptions or recommending fixes here. But sad story. Someone's class was disrupted, and this is a level of trauma that I wouldn't wish on anyone's kid. Wilmer Hutchins High School, another school shooting. That is 2 in the last year. Unbelievable. All right, we'll keep an eye on this as new reports come out. If new details emerge that I think you'd be interested in hearing, I'll be sure to pass them along. But coming up on the James Show, I have an interview with Senator Ted Cruz, and we're going to ask him to grade Donald Trump's first 100 days. We are about 100 days through, and I want to say like the first Donald Trump's first 100 days, the first of his Donald Trump 2.0. Clearly, he had a first 100 days back in 2017. But I'm going to ask you the same question after I talk to Ted Cruz. What grade would you give Donald Trump on his first 100 days? So we'll talk to Senator Cruz next. I'll ask him that and about some other things that are going on with the economy and things that affect your money. And then coming up after that, I'll give you my grade on Donald Trump's first 100 days. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. All right, here we are with Senator Ted Cruz, the good senator. Hello, Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I know. Let's go. Thank you. Good to see you. All right, here we are with Senator Ted Cruz, the good senator from Texas. Welcome. Ted Cruz, the good senator from Texas. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Senator Cruz, I want to start with how would you grade Trump's first 100 days? Or at least Trump, how would you grade Trump's first 100 days? At least Trump 2.0.
Look, I would give it an A+. I have to say it has been extraordinary. In the history of our country, we have never seen a president hit the ground running. Never seen a president hit the ground President Trump has, and who has accomplished as much as he has. There's a big difference, I think, between the second term and the first term. I think the second term, the president came in knowing exactly what he wanted to do and knowing exactly how he wanted to do it. And every day now, I literally wake up and grab my phone and go look to see, okay, what did we do today? Because it has been, the record of accomplishment has been astonishing. Let's take, for example, has been astonishing. There was no bigger issue in the election. There was last year than securing the border. The single clearest mandate that came out of the election in November was to secure the border. We have seen since Donald Trump became president again, we have seen illegal border crossings drop over 95%. It is staggering. And it is, my favorite line from the President's State of the Union address. My favorite line from the President's State of the Union address. Joe Biden said last year that he could not secure the border unless Congress passed new legislation. We didn't need new legislation. It turns out we just needed a new president. And that's exactly right. We just needed a new president. And it's been incredible what's gotten accomplished so far. And I'm excited what the next 3.5 years have to hold.
Well, there's a lot of action going on right now with the tariffs. Your colleague in the Senate, Elizabeth Warren, says all of this tariff stuff can be undone and overridden by Congress if they vote in favor of it. Do you think that's at risk of happening? Do you think that's at risk of happening?
And I got to say, typically any quick question that begins with Elizabeth Warren says that, you're not going to find a whole lot of wisdom in the words that follow that. You're not going to find a whole lot of wisdom in the words that follow that. On just about everything. Listen, when it comes to tariffs, on just about everything. Listen, when it comes to tariffs, that has been an area of massive change, and there has been some real uncertainty. And there has been some real uncertainty. And this is something I've talked about a great deal. And this is something I think there are two paths in front of us for where we can go on tariffs. Path number one is, I think, the president with the tariffs he's announced has enormous leverage now over our trading partners. And what I hope will happen is that we will use that leverage to negotiate much lower tariffs from our trading partners in exchange for the president lower tariffs he just announced. If that happens, if in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, the result is we see tariffs worldwide, that would be a massive free market victory for the president, for the United States, for Texas. That would benefit Texas farmers and ranchers and manufacturers and small businesses. I hope that's the path we take. Now, James, I will see there is a second path we can take, and there are voices in the administration advocating for this second path. And that is a path that leaves in place high tariffs in perpetuity. High tariffs from America, and in response to retaliatory tariffs from our trading partners. I very much hope we do not go down that path, because if we do, I think that would hurt Texas and it would hurt the country. It would hurt our farmers, our ranchers, our small businesses, our manufacturers. So I can tell you, I spend a lot of time with President Trump. I was with the President of Air Force One. This weekend we went down for the UFC fight. This weekend we went down.
What, the one in Miami? That one?
Yeah.
How cool is that? What, the one in Miami? That one?
Was spectacular.
Oh, how cool is that?
But we talked about tariffs a lot. What I urged him then and what I've urged him repeatedly is use the leverage to win a massive victory for opening up markets across the world to American goods. And doing that will be an extraordinary victory for Texas.
Well, I think one of the legislative priorities we're all watching the most, because it affects pretty much everyone listening, is extending the Tax Cut and Jobs Act from 2017. It expires at the end of the year. I know your political opposition isn't going to roll over and just give it to you for nothing. Do they have an argument against it, or are they asking for something in return for passing it? What's the situation with the tax cuts being extended? What's the situation with the tax cuts being extended?
Well, the Democrats of it is, sadly, are adamantly opposed to cutting taxes. They want to raise taxes on everybody. They are a tax party. That's what they believe. But the beauty, the good news is that's what they believe. But we are using a procedural tool that we don't need a Democrat vote. A procedural tool that we're going to vote no, and that's fine because we can pass it with the Republican votes we have. We're using something that's called budget reconciliation. Now that sounds like a bunch of Washington gobbledygook. Now that sounds the only thing important to know about that. The only thing important to know about that is the principal exception to the Senate filibuster rule. The Senate filibuster rule requires 60 votes to the Senate. Ordinary legislation. Now, we only have 53 Republicans. If you got to get 60 votes, you need 7 Democrats. If you got to get Democrats, you need the ability to hold us hostage and the ability to hold really good things. Well, budget reconciliation, we can pass just using 50 votes. So that's going to be the mechanism of using 50 votes. To extend the tax cuts, we're going to make them bigger and bolder. That's going to be the mechanism we use to secure the border. We're going to invest in building the wall and border patrol and ICE and building the wall and technology. We're going to secure the border. That's also going to be we're going to secure the border. We use to rebuild our military, and we're going to use it to unleash American energy. We're going to use it to oil and gas. American all of that we can get done without needing to get a single Democrat vote, which is good because the Democrats today, which is good. Because they really are the party of anger. They really are the party. They no longer stand and hate. They no longer they just hate Donald Trump. And so it's incumbent on us not to complain about that. And so it's to roll up our sleeves and get to work and deliver on our promises. To roll up our sleeves and get to work.
Yeah, and along that line, I'm wondering where the question is going to get answered on how many swastikas you can go draw without being a Nazi yourself. You can go draw without being a Nazi yourself.
It's a very good point, but I got to say the nice thing is it's a very good point. These leftist vandals are also proving they really are imbeciles. I mean, they're complete morons. They really are imbeciles. I mean, they're complete morons. They have cameras everywhere. They go up to a camera and they smile on the camera. They go up to a camera and they smile on the camera. The Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, who's a good friend, the new Attorney General, she's announced that they've arrested some of the criminals who were firebombing Tesla dealers, some of the criminals, and they're going to see 40 years in prison. If you engage in domestic terrorism, 40 years in prison. You are going to engage in domestic terrorism, jail time. That is exactly right. And it is sad to see the left condoning violence, the angry left engaging in violence, the angry left engaging in acts, condemn it, in some cases celebrating those acts of violence.
All right, Senator Ted Cruz, thank you very much for your time on the James Show. I appreciate it, sir. Ted Cruz, thank you very much for your time on the James Show. I appreciate it, sir.
Everyone go to tedcruz.org and follow me. Everyone go to tedcruz.org and also make sure you download and listen to my podcast, Verdict with Ted Cruz. We talk about every major issue facing the Ted in the country. So download Verdict with Ted Cruz wherever you get your podcast.
I'll go look that up. Thank you very much. There he is, Senator Ted Cruz, the good senator from Texas on the James Show. The good senator from Texas on the James Show. Thank you, sir. All right, now that you heard your senator grade Donald Trump's first 100 days in office, I'm asking you, what grade would you give Trump on his first 100 days in office this second time around? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, I'll tell you what grade I give Donald Trump on his first 100 days. This is the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, but I want you to actually answer it. You don't have to call in and have the discussion. You're welcome to, but at least answer it in your head, or you could just say it back to the radio here. What grade would you give Donald Trump on his first 100 days? What grade as far as A, B, C, F? I mean, I guess you could throw in a D there, but what grade would you give him? You just heard Senator Ted Cruz give him an A. Of course, he's going to get. Oh, actually, he gave him an A plus, didn't he? So, look, not a big shock there. They're on the same team. And what would you give him? 800-288-9227. Let me tell you what I would give him. I would give him a B. Now, don't get upset. It's not an A, but I'm not completely satisfied with what I've seen thus far. He does have the ability to go back and make a couple of changes here and there and get an A. But I want to start with the positives here. Number one, the biggest positive is even for the negatives, there's nothing that I have on my list where if Biden or Kamala would have won, I would have been happier. So don't think that anything I say negative about Trump is an implied endorsement of Team Blue. Pretty much all my criticisms are coming from the right on this guy. So that's actually a positive here. But let's start with the big one. The border's closed. That's huge. I think that's so big. And the fact that it's not getting headlines isn't really fair, because that is the biggest change as far as statecraft that has already happened. And it happened almost instantly. Not having another 12 million illegals stream through the border over the next 4 years makes a huge difference in the future of this country. But it's not just that the border is closed. This is general immigration approach as well. Mass deportations of criminal illegal aliens are fantastic. Deportations of any illegal alien I see it as a net positive. So I'm very happy with that. Now, I'm happy with the cuts that DOJ has made with firing so many people, and they say the Department of Education is effectively closed. Well, I don't like that word effectively in there. We don't need any adverbs in front of it. We need the Department of Education to be closed. We need USAID to be closed and closed forever. And so he's done all he can do with executive orders and the control that he's been given in the executive branch. This is one of the things that could move him up to an A as soon as this gets codified into law in the next big spending bill. The new investments from tech companies like NVIDIA here in Texas, they're building a new plant in the Dallas area, a new one in the Houston area. But it was like $500 billion in new investments announced before he was even sworn in. We're well over $1 trillion now, especially with the great news that we got just this week. I mean, that NVIDIA news broke yesterday. And then something that's flown under the radar that I really like from the Trump administration that I found so disappointing with previous administrations is how many hostages, American citizens that are being held hostage abroad, that he's brought home. 6 American hostages in Venezuela, 2 Americans in Afghanistan, an American in Hamas captivity, a Pennsylvania teacher in Russian captivity, American citizen in Belarus. So this is something that you feel like any president could have done this at any time. They just didn't care. Didn't want to spend the political capital on it. Too busy doing other things. I thought that was fantastic. And now let me get into where it's going to get a little rough here. Let's get into the negatives. Number one on the negatives is we still don't have the Epstein list. And I mean the real Epstein list, not the redacted one that was already made public when they put the binders out there and they've got the influencers at the White House with Pam Bondi for the photo op. Nope. Not too happy about that. And also not too happy about the continuing resolution that kept Biden spending levels in place through September. Now, that might be something that resolves itself in September. Again, here's the room for improvement. If September rolls around and the next continuing resolution, or if they actually, God forbid, do their job and pass a for real budget, if that gets balanced, he's to an A+. He is not just an A- or an A. That's an A+ if this man can balance the budget. But he's already given up sort of the ideological battleground on balancing the budget for the whole first year of his presidency. So disappointing. So those are the two big negatives, the budget and no Epstein list. Also, the raising of the debt ceiling by $2 trillion, I consider that a no bueno. But here's the gray area where if this guy can actually work out what's going on with the tariff situation, that'll catapult him into an A+, whether he balances the budget or not. Because look, as long as the budget deficit is cut in half and we see better tariff rules out there, we see freer and fairer trade among the nations of Earth with America, I think I could begrudgingly move him up to A- territory. But overall, it's a B, and it's not a B+, and it's not a B-. I thought Joe Biden was an absolute F. I thought Trump 1.0 was probably a C. Trump 2.0, better than Trump 1.0. Where was all these mass deportations first time around? He did lock down the border. That was fantastic. Love that. But he didn't do all these big Doge cuts either. Where was that the first time around? So this Trump is doing better than the first Trump. I like this Trump. Trump 2.0 is better than Trump 1.0. But he hadn't got himself to an A grade yet. What grade would you give him? And if it's not an A, what would he have to do to get there? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. You can also use that same phone number to tell me how wrong I am or how I need to rethink what I'm saying here and he's really an A and this is why. We can have that discussion as well. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, homeowners, one of the most important pieces of your house is your roof. If something happens to that roof, you are in big trouble of having problems that expound exponentially through below the roof. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. And it doesn't take much to get a peace of mind and make sure you're okay. All we're asking for is a free roof inspection from Blue Ribbon. That's right, it's free. And it's not a setup. It's not like they charge you a fee once they get there. But Blue Ribbon Roofing will send an experienced crew out. They'll look around your roof. They'll take some pictures. They'll go through a checklist. They'll document everything. And if everything's fine, then you also have a great baseline for if you do have future roof problems in the next storm, if some shingles blow off, you actually have the documents that say, look, I called Blue Ribbon Roofing back in April. They came out. They took some pictures of my house. Those shingles were there. This storm did it. Insurance, you got to cover it all. You don't just give me that $25,000 check. You got to pay for the whole thing. And that's another one of the great things about Blue Ribbon Roofing. If you do have some issues with your roof, they can help you get through that just pain in the neck insurance process as well. It's a family business. They've been caring for their fellow Texans for 31 years. And you can trust me, you can trust Casey, you can trust Bob over on the ticket, or you can just go look at the hundreds of 5-star Google reviews yourself. Mention you heard it on WBAP, you get a free ridge vent ventilation upgrade should you need a new roof. So if you're looking for someone you trust to take care of your very important house, the biggest investment you've ever made, go to blueribbondfw.com. And when you talk to them, tell them thanks for sponsoring WeatherCon this year. blueribbondfw.com. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. If you want to grade Donald Trump's first 100 days, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. My next guest, Shannon Martin, she's a bank rate analyst when it comes to insurance. Welcome to the James Show, Shannon.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to start with something that Donald Trump promised on the campaign trail. He promised to lower our car insurance. Now, I like the sound of that because I think all of us would like lower car insurance. However, you wrote a great piece on Bankrate a while back that pointed out that car insurance regulation is mainly in the hands of the state. So is there anything he could really do about that, Shannon?
Well, I thought it sounded good, too. I would love it if someone could lower my car insurance, but unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. Insurance is run by each state. Insurance carriers have to file for rate adjustments with the state and get approval before they can increase rates. And they base the rate of insurance off of risk, off the cost of automobiles. So there really isn't a way for any one person to say, okay, we're going to cut your car insurance in half, because cars cost what they cost and risk is what it is. So that's just not something that someone can do without a lot of legal changes and other things in place.
Is there anything he could indirectly do to help you with your car insurance?
Well, maybe. There are some things that he could do that can increase or decrease your insurance. There are problems regarding third-party litigation. If you've ever driven down the highway and you see the big billboards saying, I won $10 million, my lawyer helped me for my car accident, those types of things are really increasing the rate of car insurance because there's a lot of lawsuits that are happening where people are looking for nuclear verdicts, big payouts, and they're just not supportive of the industry or individuals, because as an individual, you probably won't get that major payout. It's better just to go through your insurance carrier. So creating laws limiting the ability for third-party litigators to do the practices the way they're doing it now could actually help lower the rate of car insurance. What's going on right now with with tariffs is really going to probably increase the rate of car insurance for most Americans.
How could the tariff situation have an effect on your car insurance rates?
Well, the simplest way to think about it is the more it costs to build a car, the more it costs to insure a car, because the bulk of your auto insurance pays to repair or replace your vehicle or someone else's vehicle in a covered claim. Now with this extra kind of 10% base tariff on every country, that's not increasing just the cost of vehicle parts and purchases. It's increasing every aspect of kind of operating a business in the country. So now insurance carriers under business. Let me start over. As much as it costs to pay employees, to buy a desk for your employees, the rental structure, everything is going to be changing, and that actually could impact drivers' car insurance rates as well, because all of that is going to impact the carrier's bottom line.
Well, Shannon Martin from Bankrate, let's move on to homeowners insurance. Is there any optimism that he could have a positive impact on our homeowners insurance?
Homeowners insurance actually is the same thing. It's all run by the state. Insurance commissioners and departments of insurance work with carriers to adjust rates, to work with policy forms and things like that. What's going on in the home insurance space is the rise of extreme weather and trying to navigate that risk while making insurance available and affordable. So again, changes in how lawsuits are being performed in this country, that's something that might be able to lower the cost of insurance. Doing something about the cost of the materials used to construct a home. Right now, the cost of lumber is really high. More tariffs actually make it even higher. So it's more about what can we do to lower the risk and lower the cost to build homes and to build cars, rather than just chopping off the cost of home and auto insurance premiums.
If you're a car insurance company, is there anything you could do to say, look, if you're going to have a Cybertruck, we might have to give you a keying premium or maybe a swastika surcharge for all the vandalism that's happening?
I don't think that's something that they can do, but we do kind of have a case study. We know that around 2022, when Kias and Hyundais were being broken into and stolen, that created such a high risk for those vehicles that a lot of carriers started to decline comprehensive coverage or
Yeah.
maybe even offer coverage for that vehicle.
That happened to a coworker here. Joseph had one of those Kias that
Yeah.
got stolen easily, and I think he got dropped too. So you just described Joseph.
Well, I'm sorry for Joseph. I have a Kia too, so I feel his pain.
Oh no.
But really, with the Cybertruck situation, it could get to a point where it's becoming just so expensive to replace these parts that maybe that type of coverage won't be offered through some carriers. But it would take a while for it to happen. And then remember that Tesla has its own Tesla brand insurance that's not available in every state, but a handful of states. If that happens to you where you don't have the coverage through your regular carrier, you might be able to turn to Tesla to get that coverage there.
All right. I didn't know they had a special rate going like that. So do we need to just crack down on our representatives in Austin to get some real progress on this front?
Believe it or not, working with your government, working within your community actually is one way to stay ahead of what's going on with your car insurance rates. Your insurance commissioners are usually appointed positions, and so if their constituents let them know what they're happy with, what they're not happy with, that actually could kind of make a difference when they get these rate increase requests from carriers. Maybe they're able to give them a little bit more pushback than they would. But as far as being a driver goes, what you really want to do is make sure to keep a really good driving record. Focus on improving your credit. Credit can actually make a major impact to your car insurance rate. So the better your credit score is, the better your insurance premium might be.
All right. All helpful stuff. Shannon Martin, Bankrate. Appreciate your time and your expertise on the James Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That's Shannon Martin from Bankrate. She's an insurance wonk over there. I think I'm still going to be paying pretty high rates for the time being. Coming up next, though, we'll take a look at consumer sentiment. It's a nice gauge on the economy. There's been a lot of worrying and wringing of hands in the headlines about the economy, but what does the average consumer think? Find out next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What's up, hockey fans? Playoffs is ramping up for hockey, and I know you're already going to be watching it. Why don't you add a little bit more fun to the hockey you're already enjoying? Hit the ice with Prize Picks. James Parker here for Prize Picks. You have inside knowledge. You have spent the time. You have put in the effort to know the inside info that gives you a leg up on Prize Picks. So you go to the hockey section and you know if Ratnan's about to go on a tear. You know if Ottinger's going to be a wall in the next game. So you can take that, you make a lineup of 2 to 6 players. You take a stat line, you pick more or less on it. It could be saves, it could be shots, it could be time on the ice. And then if you get them right, boom, you turn a little bit of money into a lot of money. And by a lot of money, the multiples are up to 2,000 times. That's now the top prize on Prize Picks, 2,000 times your money. And it's not just your regular fantasy sports. It's a daily fantasy sports app. If you don't know, go check it out. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and you can try it out with our money. Download the Prize Picks app with your first $5 play. If you use our promo code WBAP, you get $50 of promo cash. That means you can play with this $50 and work it out and turn it into some real money and then withdraw it and then thank me later. Download Prize Picks, use promo code WBAP, get $50 with your first $5 game. Prize Picks, run your game. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Mark your calendars because April 26th, Blue Ribbon Roofing is putting on WeatherCon with WBAP and Fox 4. It's going to be at the Frontiers of Flight Museum, 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Look, there's a plus and a minus to getting there when it starts. The plus is if you get there before 9:30, you'll get to see all the presentations, all the exhibits, and all the vendors at all the booths. We'll still have free stuff to give out. If you show up later, sometimes people run out of the cool giveaways. You might miss some of the Storm Chaser presentations or some of the science presentations for the little kiddos where they have the comic guy who's almost like a human cartoon go out and teach your kids some cool stuff and do some science experiments in front of them. But the downside is there's going to be a little bit of a line. That's it. Other than that, it's free. So come on out. Meet Hal J, because he always has the longest line, or at least he did when we did it last year. I'll be there too. I'm not chopped liver, but I know you just want to meet Hal J or Brad Barton. And then come check out some of the exhibits. Some of them are show sponsors or sponsors on WBAP at large. Some of them are just there because they're into weather or education or stuff for kiddos. So it's a good time, absolutely free. And you get to see the Frontiers of Flight Museum at no cost because Blue Ribbon Roofing covered it for you. Round of applause for Blue Ribbon Roofing for sponsoring 2025's WeatherCon. Brought to you by WBAP and Fox 4. Yes, I think Garrett will even be there too. Garrett, you going to be at WeatherCon? Possibly. This is your answer? Possibly. All right, so a fun debate is being had about this guy that's in El Salvador. We had talked about that for a little bit yesterday. Wait till you hear the audio I have on the back and forth that was happening in the media. We'll do that after the top of the hour news. That'll be in about 15 minutes. Right now, though, to my next guest, who's going to give us a little insight on consumer sentiment. We know what the media thinks of the economy. We know what Donald Trump and his cabinet thinks of the economy. But Vince Barth, he's a financial strategist. Consumer sentiment. What does the average consumer think of the economy right now?
3 words. Sentiment is sour, unfortunately.
Well, that's always a concern because people like to think of economics as dollars and cents. It's numbers on a spreadsheet. But it's really a study of human behavior more than money.
If you're looking for a job, my firm is growing, in fact, because you are preaching to the choir, my man. So when we as consumers perceive the economy as doing well, and very specifically when we look at our investment account statements for our 401k, for example, and the stock market's going up and interest rates might be going down a tad, so our bonds are making money, and in general, the directionality is up. We feel wealthier and therefore are more inclined to spend on discretionary goods and major durable ticket items like a new refrigerator, washer, dryer, etc. The inverse of that also applies, where when we watch media and the headlines are dominated with negative news around the economy and in particular our portfolios, we rein in those discretionary expenses and hold off on some big ticket items. And the problem with that is that behaviorally, when we spend less, it can inadvertently lead to an economic slowdown.
I find it interesting that this is the highest number going back to the 80s. It wasn't higher than this when we had the dot-com bubble bust. It wasn't higher than this when we had the financial collapse in 2008 and 2009. It wasn't higher than this during the collapse that happened during the pandemic. I find that odd.
That's right. So it was the lowest reading since June of 2022. And if you remember at the time, that was really at the peak of when the Federal Reserve took the wrecking ball to interest rates and went from 0 to 5.5 on what is called the Fed funds rate, or said differently, the rate that the Federal Reserve itself sets by way of the FOMC. The second lowest in the survey's history, going back to 1952, is the reading that we just had. So we're talking
second lowest. Okay.
Of data. Yeah. I mean, just decades. It's an abysmal reading to sugarcoat it.
Well, how much of this is based on the actual fundamentals of the economy versus apocalyptic reporting in the media?
That is an excellent looking question. Perception is reality, and the perception among American consumers really is twofold. The first is driven by the Trump tariffs because people remember the inflation that occurred in 2021 leading into 2022 that caused 9 and 11% year over year inflation, and it prompts pain. And the second driver is that a lot of folks remember the stagflationary impacts of when inflation is high and economic growth is stymied, and that can really cause a problem. And so if the collective perception is that Houston, we have a problem, people can rein in the spending. But fundamentally, going back to your point regarding the economy, growth has trumped expectations over the last 2 years. And my view is that the economy structurally changed in response to COVID because, as it turns out, when you keep millions of Americans and people worldwide, for that matter, in their homes, drop interest rates to zero, and plow a bunch of dollars into the economy, inflation results, and how and where people spend time and money change. And so because of that, we've had a higher level of baseline inflation, not crazy year over year inflation, but we're back in that sort of core 3% range, which is where it's been over long periods of time. Historically, the difference, though, is that it feels higher because we had 13 years of zero interest rates where growth was barely scratching 2%.
All right, Vance Bars. He has his website, vancebars.com, VANCEBARSE.com. Thank you very much, Vance.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, coming up next, you're going to hear a little interesting, not just the meeting that was had with the cabinet and Bukele with Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and Stephen Miller was there, but the reporting afterwards is just going to drop your jaw on the floor. In fact, you might wreck your car. So be careful in this next segment because this audio is wild. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. So the president of El Salvador, Bukele, was visiting the White House, and there was an interesting exchange there. On the couch was Pam Bondi. In the chair was Bukele. Next to Pam Bondi on the couch, there was Trump. Standing behind them was Stephen Miller. We're going to hear from all four of them. There was a great exchange there with Caitlin Collins, who... from the point of view of this administration, she's an adversarial member of the media, and no doubt she is adversarial. But these are the useful members of the media, the people who are out of power. Their party's out of power. They're the ones who ask the tough questions. You don't want to get the questions about, tell me about how great you are. So when she challenged them, I don't think she liked the result. Donald Trump was sitting there, and of course, when it's time to take questions. She directed the question at him, but he gave a quick answer and then passed it off to the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to go into a little more legal detail. And this is where it got a little hot. Check this out, Pam Bondi.
Go ahead. Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CNN.
Love that.
Low-rated. Which one is that?
The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
Well, let me ask Pam. Would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First
So she's asking about Garcia, the man that she says was mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country.
Don't worry, this rumbling on the microphone will stop. But she's saying first and foremost, he came to our country illegally and has been in our country illegally.
And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us.
And so if there's any doubt that Garcia was here illegally, he's a Salvadorian citizen, and he had been living here illegally for 8 years before he got in trouble with the law. That's when he made his asylum claim. Oh, now you can't take me back to El Salvador. It's too dangerous there. Gangs will kill me. Not that I'm part of a rival gang or anything. It's just really dangerous. So then Trump asked Stephen Miller to go into a little more detail from his point of view.
There's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So we had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation.
And so then she turned to Bukele, the president of El Salvador, if he's going to confirm what she's just heard. He's one of yours. He's one of your citizens. Can't you bring him back? And Bukele said, no, we're not returning a terrorist.
What is can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always
how can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So you can release him inside El Salvador?
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
They'd love to have a criminal, released into our country.
There's a fascination.
They would love it. They're sick. These are sick people.
I love it. He was talking about Caitlin there. These are sick people. So I like that Bukele guy. So if you're wondering, well, if it's been exposed now that this guy is here illegally, he's not a citizen. He's not going through the proper immigration process. He just claimed asylum after he already been in trouble with the law, and it turns out for some other violations with gang stuff, including human trafficking. that he got deported, and just because they didn't put the new cover sheet on their TPS report, it's supposed to be like, oh, some bad thing, and we got to return the terrorists back to America now. Excuse me. Sounds like a terrible idea, but you wonder, how are there still protests? How are there still people who are supporting this guy? I bet you most people don't know. You want to go see how this is reported in the media? First, I'll go to the local TV affiliate there, WJLA, where they talk about protests in Washington, D.C., supporting Garcia and trying to get him brought back to the United States. See if they ever mention if he is here illegally or if he's a citizen of El Salvador or if he's a confirmed gang member by 2 different court hearings.
President Trump met with his Salvadoran counterpart in the Oval Office today, and a big focus was on that legal fight around a Maryland man mistakenly deported to El Salvador's notorious mega prison. We've got more on what they had to say coming up in just moments, but first, 7 News' Brad Bell was at another protest calling for Kilmar Abrego Garcia's return. Brad, what his supporters are saying now as this case drags on.
All right, let me go and cut through this. There's a 2-minute report on this protest. Not once do they admit that he's not here legally, that he's an El Salvadorian citizen, that he's been confirmed by 2 different courts as a member of MS-13. If they don't ever tell you he's an illegal alien, why wouldn't you be on his side? You know, they like to call him a Maryland father over and over, whether you see it in USA Today or on CNN on the caption. It's Maryland father this, Maryland father that, not illegal alien this, not MS-13 gang member that, not human trafficker this, or criminal that. No, he's a Maryland father. That's his defining characteristics, Maryland, and the fact that he's reproduced. Check this out. The caption on CNN today, I took a picture of it. Hearing today on mistakenly deported man as Trump admin defies courts. Oh, you got it so good. Here's WJLA. After they did the 2-minute report on the protest asking for Garcia to come back, they actually reported on the meeting that I just played you with Bukele, Bondi, Miller, Trump, all saying that this guy is an illegal immigrant with a criminal record, human trafficking, MS-13. How do you do a 1.5-minute report on this without admitting it? Watch him do it. Watch him.
All right, Brad, thank you. And Tom Rousey picks up our team coverage at the Alert Desk. Tom, Garcia's case was a main topic of discussion during today's Oval Office meeting between President Trump and the president of El Salvador.
Well, that's right, Michelle. Both leaders made it clear that they're in agreement. They say Kilmar Abrego Garcia will not be brought back to the United States. Now, this despite that Supreme Court ruling that the Trump administration must facilitate his return. Attorney General Pam Bondi says this is an international matter, saying they could only provide a plane if El Salvador agrees to let Abrego Garcia go home. But El Salvador's president, who you see here, he says the ball is not in his court either. He claims he has no power to do this.
Because he's an illegal immigrant.
It's like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course.
Watch, they're going to cut it off before he says the illegal part.
I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
Now, Abrego Garcia was sent to a notorious Salvadoran prison due to a, quote, clerical error by immigration officials. He also had a protection order from 2019 that prevented his removal to his home country of El Salvador because at the time he said his life was threatened by gangs there. Scott?
Did you hear what was in that meeting, and then did you just hear how it was reported? No wonder people are protesting. They don't even know. They're not even being told. They're intentionally leaving out the most crucial details on why this guy got deported. Not because Trump's a meanie or Team Red doesn't care about the Constitution because he's an illegal immigrant. He's a criminal. He's a human trafficker. And if your news isn't telling you that in a report, they had 5 minutes to get that in. And how many times did you hear Pam Bondi say that? Did you hear Stephen Miller say that? Trump said that? Bukele said it all in the same meeting, and it got left out of the report. Meanwhile, you go over to Fox News. Let's see if they left it out. I mean, you know they didn't, but this is what it sounded like. Which news is more accurate?
You and I have never received in our lives as much positive press
I know.
as this MS-13 gang member
This is Stephen Miller again, but on with Jesse Waters last night.
Received. We couldn't get headlines like that if our lives depended on it.
Yeah.
So let's just go over the facts here. He is an illegal alien. Fact one, what do you do with illegal aliens? You deport them. Fact two, he's an MS-13.
What do you do with illegal aliens who are also in a transnational terrorist organization? You deport them more quickly. Oh, and on top of that, he's implicated in human trafficking. Deport, deport, deport. This is who they're going to bat for. What are we supposed to do? Buy the guy a house, get him some free health care, maybe let him run for Congress?
And it sounds like hyperbole, but you just heard them. They are covering for an illegal immigrant criminal MS-13 human trafficker. They're leaving all of that out of their reporting on this case. That's not just like, oops, I'm a sloppy reporter. That's downright fraud. That's like even beyond propaganda. That's just fraud. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. No wonder your liberal friends have no idea what's going on. The truth is being hidden from them every day in every news report. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. My next guest helps us keep abreast of what's going on outside of the United States because we've been digging in our belly button for most of the show today and haven't paid a whole lot of attention with what's going on the other side of the world. And I don't know how this guy knows all the stuff he does, but he's a welcome addition to the show. Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku. He's an expert in all things chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. So get us all caught up. Can I start with Iran? There was a meeting that happened over this weekend. It sounded really optimistic last week when they were talking about it, and I've heard no reporting on it since then, Dr. Jeff.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be back with you. Iran, we did hold talks with Iran on Saturday, described as constructive. I don't know if we met any common ground. And the good news is April 19th, they're scheduled to continue talks, not in Oman, but I think they're going to choose someplace like Rome or someplace in Europe.
Interesting.
But in terms of your road to war update, let me quickly rattle down the list. Russian continues their attacks as they continue to smell victory on the tactical side while continuing to prolong negotiated ceasefire and a peace deal. Ukraine, on the other hand, continues to lack the ability to defend their own and protect their own citizenry. A huge Russian attack on Palm Sunday, where a number of civilians were practicing their faith on that religious day.
Well, can I hit the pause button? I saw the headlines on that. I tried to read up on it, but it was a really small summary. But what was the point of this attack, like a religious attack on Palm Sunday?
No, I think it strikes fear in the citizens of Ukraine, and that was the intent. I think Putin will call it collateral damage because there was a military target, I don't know, maybe within 100 square miles or something like that, and munitions went off course.
Okay. Well, that's kind of the impression I got. Like, this wasn't, he's not attacking a base or a column of tanks. He hit some people that were worshiping. So, yeah, this was just a fear move.
It absolutely was, because remember, Zelensky has not faced an election since the war started. He continues and remains the president, and so the citizens who have remained in country, I would expect are going to apply significant political pressure on him to speed up the ceasefire and the peace deal.
All right, where are we at then with Israel and Gaza?
So Hamas is squeezed again. Israel continues to make tactical strikes into Gaza. They are currently negotiating another hostage deal that hopefully will come to fruition. I think right now, and you asked me the other day, there are about 58 hostages remaining.
Wow!
And experts estimate that about half of those are alive.
I thought the number would be much, much lower than that. So is Hamas still lobbing rockets into Israel, or are they just hunkering down?
Right now, they're on the defense. The good news is the citizens of Palestine have begun to small-scale protest against Hamas. You may have caught that in the news a couple days ago.
I did not.
But there seems to be some political unrest, and I think the information campaign that Israel is launched to try to rid Hamas of leadership in Palestine is creating some cracks in their armor.
Wow, you think that actually works?
Over time, but they're cornered right now. Hamas is cornered in a small section of Gaza adjacent to Egypt. They're literally cornered. They have nowhere else to go.
Are there talks that are currently happening out in the open, or is no big summit being held? They're just talking through back channels.
No, I think they've got some third-party negotiators with them, but it's all kept on the low and low. I don't know that they're probably. I would estimate just based on what I've read, they're probably at the 40 to 50% solution. So it's probably too soon for a political leader to announce any.
Well, Dr. Brodeur, I don't hear a whole lot of optimism in your voice when you talk about it.
No, I think Hamas's days are numbered. I don't hold out any hope for a ceasefire or peace deal anytime soon with Russia and Ukraine. And I think Iran, whether they realize it or not, they're sort of on their last leg. The president is setting conditions for a legal tactical strike into Iran. And what I mean by that is Iran's violations with a nuclear non-proliferation treaty, which is a steadfast international treaty of the United Nations, is international law, and they've clearly violated that. And he's not going to allow them to pursue a nuclear weapon. Iran right now is desperate for money, so much so that experts estimate that between February and March of this year, the export of oil to China, of all countries. Remember, we talked about the tie between China and Iran and Russia and North Korea.
Right.
Went from about 800,000 barrels per day to about 1.3 to 1.6 billion barrels. So China is buying about 90% of all of the Iranian export oil. They need the money. They need it bad. That's why I would suggest that they're going to try to continue to prolong the negotiations, the talks, in hope that sanctions will be lifted and they can continue to create distress and unrest in the Middle East. And the other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is Zelensky last week announced that they didn't take hostage. They captured a couple of Chinese soldiers on the battlefield.
Ooh.
That's not been verified yet, but it just goes back to this nexus of Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea. And as the world population and leaders continue to constrain what they're able to do, they're relying more and more on each other, which makes this a three-dimensional chessboard, right?
All right. Dr. Jeffrey Broder from Ergaku, I appreciate your expertise. Thanks for, I hadn't heard some of that information. You gave me some stuff to Google. I want to find that Chinese soldier getting captured. Coming up next, squatter horror stories on the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, WFAA just updated their report here, and I mean less than a minute ago. I hit refresh right before the music came on just to see if there's an update. And in the last 60 seconds, they updated their article saying at least 3 people were shot at Wilmer Hutchins High School in Dallas this afternoon. Not 3 people injured, not 4 people injured and 1 shot. 3 people shot. So 4 people have been hospitalized, according to their latest report from now almost 2 minutes ago. So WFAA staying on top of that. Thank you very much, guys. This is something we're going to be keeping updates coming at you for the rest of the day, at least, as more information comes out. But 3 people shot. This is a mass shooting now. This isn't one guy shooting one other guy. This is a mass. Oh, man. It just got worse. Leave it here. Our news department's scrambling right now, and they'll get all the details better than I just relayed them to you. So, it's a tough story to follow. But I had done a story that WFAA was covering last week about squatters, and there's some laws that are floating around in Austin to change the way we deal with squatters here in Texas. And we were talking about that just on the show, me and you, and I got a whole lot of emails. Apparently, this is a more pervasive problem than I thought, because let me just read you a few of them, because some of them are repetitive, and I'll tell you which one I got a lot of. But let me give you a long one first. This one comes from Rhonda. She says Texas is in the top 2 states for squatting crime. Texas. We're supposed to be like the Yosemite Sams of America. Get off my property. Woo! Right? I thought I'm stereotypical dumb Texan. Okay. She says squatters do not have permission to be on your property. It's a crime to break and enter or not leave when told to. But just as your lawyer guest said, the minute they are inside, they currently, in Texas law, they have rights. It's maddening. You cannot imagine. We are still cleaning up our own situation from last year. These are not poor homeless people who want to get out of the cold. They are professionals, and they know the law and the ropes better than the homeowner, the police, the JP, and everyone else. They were one step ahead of us the whole way. Governor Abbott's on record as stating that criminal trespasses against the law in Texas and that we are a stand your ground state and can defend our property, but he is delusional. Our law in no way supports this with trespassers who enter your property when you are not there. You cannot touch them or use a gun or force if it's not self-defense, or you are the one who goes to jail. They changed the electric out of our name, sold our appliances, removed every single electric wire in the entire house, just to name a few. I'm a conservative pro-police person, but the Fort Worth police did not care. They did nothing. The neighborhood city did nothing. They would not even come pick up the pit bull-looking dogs. The squatters left there until we paid $200. You do not have time for all the nightmares, we could tell you. Another guy named John says he knows a woman who went somewhere in Europe for a month. When she came home, there was people in her house. Her house was destroyed. Most of her furniture was gone, sold, along with all the copper piping and wiring. And she could not get back into her house legally. It doesn't make sense. How can they go into her house illegally and get to stay? Anyway, she finally got them out with about $50,000 worth of damages. Another John sent in an email, and I got to tell you, I got about 12, maybe 15 of these where it was a short paragraph, but John's was the best. It said, man, I think I would bring a shower curtain and lay it on the living room floor and tell him it's to keep the blood from getting all over the carpet when I shoot him in 10 seconds. There will be no witnesses. And I don't condone this. I don't approve of this. I don't endorse this. But a lot of people said they would just shoot them. And since there's no witnesses, they would say it's in self-defense. How do you disprove it? I'm not anyone's lawyer. I'm not giving out advice. I'm just telling the squatters out there, there's a lot of people in Texas that if you squat in the wrong house, it's not going to go well for you. They're all not going to roll over like some of these other people that were emailing in. And it's not just John that said that. There's about 15 people, and maybe they're real enthusiastic about sending emails to radio shows, but I wouldn't test it. And I'd be interested into seeing how these situations played out. How do we know it hasn't already? How do we know someone hasn't squatted and a homeowner came home, went and got a gun, shot him, and then just called the cops, say, hey, I got home, and then this guy broke in and I had to defend myself. And then it was never reported as a squatter getting shot. Would it even make the news? Would you even know the difference? Because there's no way they would tell the cops, well, this was a squatter, and so I shot him, because then they would be in trouble. So maybe this does happen. I don't know, man, but that's what made it so fun to talk about. And I love getting emails from you people about shady, sketchy stuff like this. My email's james@wbap.com, or you can call the radio station, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Bill Maher took a trip to the White House with Donald Trump, came home, and even as a strident member of Team Blue, is now saying nice things about Trump. You'll hear it next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You should be fascinated in the process by which people evolve their political beliefs because it works usually in your favor. Younger people tend to skew liberal, older people tend to skew conservative, and I think you would like the results if we could speed up that evolutionary process a little bit. So I always watch with rapt attention at the people who finally admit it. Because do you know how hard it is to get any human being on earth to admit they did something wrong? I mean, it's embedded in us from kids. Who did that? I didn't do that. Did you do something wrong? Not me. It was so-and-so's fault. Or no, I didn't get that wrong. You just misunderstood me. Or just something like that. Well, to have a human being go out and publicly say political things for years at a time and then have to go out at some later point and admit he was wrong, I always find that amazing. I always find that, that first off, I give that person credit. The first person to admit that they're wrong usually starts with the credit building in the debate stage for me. But the latest example here is Bill Maher. Now, Bill Maher is still on Team Blue. Bill Maher is not a Trumper. Bill Maher is one of the most strident Trump critics consistently out there for at least the last 10 years. But how do you explain Joe Rogan being a lefty and being a Bernie bro and then coming around to Trump? How do you explain Elon Musk doing the same thing? How do you explain all these other people who have the similar story? Liberal when they were young, conservative when they got older. Now, I am not holding out hope that Bill Maher will ever finish the conversion. It may be too late for him. He's somewhere in his 60s or something at this point. But Kid Rock invited him to the White House last weekend. Kid Rock's real name's Bob. You'll hear reference Bob in one of these clips. And Bill Maher said, "You know what? I can go meet this guy. I know I've said terrible things about him." And he was surprised at how much backlash he got after he admitted he was going to go visit Trump. And he thought that was a bad sign. So he did a review on his show on Friday. Let me play you 3 clips from it. First off, Maher says Trump was nice.
He's much more self-aware than he lets on in public. Look, I get it. It doesn't matter who he is at a private dinner with a comedian. It matters who he is on the world stage. I'm just taking as a positive that this person exists, because everything I've ever not liked about him was, I swear to God, absent, at least on this night with this guy. Bob, Kid Rock, told me the night before, he said, if you want to get a word in edgewise, you're going to have to cut him off. He'll just go on. Not at all. I've had so many conversations with prominent people who are much less connected, people who don't look you in the eye, people who don't really listen because they just want to get to their next thing, people whose response to things you say just doesn't track, like, what? None of that with him. And he mostly steered the conversation to, what do you think about this? I know, your mind is blown, so's mine.
All right, and here's the fun part. Bill Maher made an insult list and got Trump to sign it. I thought this was cute.
First good sign, before I left for the Capitol, I had my staff collect and print out this list of almost 60 different insulting epithets that the president has said about me. Things like stupid, dummy, lowlife dummy, sleazebag, sick, sad, stone cold crazy. Really a dumb guy, fired like a dog, his show is dead. There's 60. I brought this to the White House because I wanted him to sign it, which he did.
Hey, isn't that nice? Isn't that cute? They're making friends. This is how friends are made. One more clip from Bill Maher talking about his trip to visit Trump in the White House. This is from his HBO show on Friday.
I never felt I had to walk on eggshells around him. And honestly, I voted for Clinton and Obama, but I would never feel comfortable talking to them the way I was able to talk with Donald Trump. That's just how it went down. Make of it what you will. Me, I feel it's emblematic of why the Democrats are so unpopular these days.
You know what? I have heard that from a lot of my liberal friends and some listeners who happen to be liberal. They say I don't feel like I have to walk around eggshells on you. Of course you don't. I don't care if you say something that's politically incorrect or not woke or Might offend some people. If it's funny, it's funny. No, you can relax around me. You don't have to worry about offending me. I can't go to HR and get you in trouble for anything. So I thought that was a beautiful story. Bill Maher gets credit for going. He gets credit for being open-minded, and then he gets credit for admitting it on his own show. He's still not a fan of Trump, but he at least reached out to Olive Branch and had the conversation, and I thought that was super cool. Coming up next, Mark Levin. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.